Seems okay. Can't tell if it's buffering or not. Oh, crap. It's the other save. Forgot about that. I was about to be really confused. There we go. That's what I was looking for. For good measure, let me see if there's any items worth even picking up. But at this point, pretty much anybody that's not Ash is superfluous. Alright, I might get that sword just to get it. And a Mojo Road, another gold axe. So yeah, 3 battles left. I'll go ahead and finish this. Seems so dark in here today. Probably because it is bright out. Oh yeah, it's probably doing it. Not much I can do about that right now. So I can move this. That's bright. That works. Oh yeah, I probably should also I can do that, I suppose. Started this battle last time, but it's really just a battle of little consequence. No secrets, just 3 chests. So I'll mostly be moving to position my people to get the chest more than anything. Those 2 guys are dead. Oh, they survived. I think I'll try out some of the monk spells too, because I kind of want to see those, refresh myself on what those look like. Exactly full screen. Nice, exactly what I wanted it to do. That should be a kill. Not that I need it, but hey, I see. Pretty much that, exactly. He is nearly impossible to stop. Like, I was actually thinking about this yesterday, because you know how people do challenge runs, and you can't really do like an Ash only run in this game, because it's not conducive to it, but on the other hand, it becomes crazy easy to do so once you become a Vandal leader. So how are you doing today, Eister? That's good to hear. I'm not doing too bad. I'm about to finish this up and go to my next background game, which I think is going to be Dark Savior. It's another game I played when I was younger on my cousin's Sega Saturn, so I never got to like. The first time I played it, I never got to go all the way through it. The second time I had access to it, I beat it. It's an interesting game. It's a little. It can be a little much in some ways, but I think it's another good background game while I talk about like the areas I like to talk about. It's actually it's kind of hard to describe. It's like a platforming it's an isometric platforming game that has one-on-one fights, and it does have RPG elements to it in the fights, but really it's mostly focused on the platforming. And then after that, I would say the story of the game, because it has an interesting way you get to the story. It has something called parallels, and any further explanation would kind of like possibly ruin it, so I might wait. But you'll see what I mean soon enough. Like, there's 3 battles left in this. In this game, obviously, like, since you know about Ash, it's not going to take very long. It just depends on how much time I want to spend collecting the items, which I do kind of want to collect the items, because I could have already ended this battle. And I'm probably going to do another blast of Vandal, no, because I think I might just do Salamander with the Ash instead. Or actually, I'll use one of the monk spells. that to hit those dude. So I'll use Avalanche. That should hit. But yeah, it's a platformer. There are some puzzles as well. And it's an action platformer, but that's what I can describe it. And that kind of also keeps in line with wanting to play things that are a little more interesting that you don't see people just like play all the time. Although obviously there are games that I have enjoyed that I do want to touch on that are more common. Let's see. That's a basic spell. What is Mystic Energy? So that's kind of the monk stick in this. Is monk spells are mostly supportive spells, but again they don't make up for what you lose in terms of healing or attack magic ability. So we'll see. Now that he's kind of overextended, normally he'd be considered overextended. We'll see how Ash does against these four. Maybe all five will attack him. No, that one can't reach. But the other four should attack him. Oh, they're not. They usually will attack the leader if the leader is exposed. You gotta hit him. And he died for it. I think we'll take a couple more turns to finish this battle, just because I want to get these last items. I wonder how, I don't recall how much text is supposed to be seen in the cutscenes for this fight. Because I don't know if we're going to end the battle before we would even see all of it. Actually, you can heal. And we kill, but it doesn't really matter. Can you get to this chest? You can. Yo, what's up, homie? How you doing? I hope you're feeling better. Hope you've been able to get some rest. And thanks for dropping in and saying what's up, man. Actually, do I want to do that? No, leaving. Okay, yeah. He should survive. Right, he doesn't do something stupid like attacking at you. But just so that doesn't happen, really? She definitely can't get over there to hit him with We'll see if her being here provides a target he might go for instead. Oh, he's actually trying to attack Ashley. There you go. There's the block. Alright, so let's see what this Ragnarok looks like. And then this battle's over. It's an axe, which I don't need, because I don't have any guardsmen. Not that I would need it anyways, because they'd be useless. Thanks, Icer. Chest pop. I need to figure out how to make an animated emote, because there is an animated a picture that I would like to use as one. Ooh. Killed our commander. Hey, what's going on, kitty bit? Yeah, this has been our background game. And we got the Vandalier last time, and I was showing off how stupidly broken it is, and now since we're on the downslope, we're just going to finish it out and move to the next game. The next background game, which is going to be Dark Savior. And how are you guys doing today? I am doing alright. Wanted to get through and go ahead and knock this out and move into the next phase. And enjoying having a few days off. Diego, yeah, he's definitely my favorite archer because he's the only one that ever seems to get a hit consistently. Everybody else is always getting blocked. So, just for a second, recall Eister especially, look at the two faces and you'll start to see some resemblance if you haven't already. If you saw some of the earlier characters. That was a scream. So what they're referencing is that Ash's father was considered a traitor to Eris the Sage for a really long time. He was the person that helped herald the advent of the Republic government as opposed to the dynasty from before. And everybody believed that his father was a traitor, but that is, as we obviously just learned, not the case. So, are you here to talk about crypto a bit today? I will say these cutscenes look so weird in the Vandal suit versus the Paragon class. And that's also a good little saying. You mustn't use guilt to avoid responsibility. There's a lot of little, like, one-off sayings in this game that are actually pretty good. Like, it may come across as a bit of a lesser version of Final Fantasy Tactics, but it is, in its own right, a very good game. So we had talked about it a little bit before, and my take on it is first you have to separate it into, are you looking at it as what kind of asset class? Is it an investment asset or is it a currency asset? And I would argue that as a currency, it is woefully falls short. And the reason I say that is because, well, I'll pose the question to you from my perspective. Like, say you were a billionaire heir to like a farm or a shipping magnate or a logging company or whatever the case may be, something base level need for human survival. And you have your fortune in dollars or euros or pounds. And then somebody comes along and says, hey, I want to buy $100,000 or $1 million of your product. And you're like, cool, I'm completely fine with that, obviously. But then they say, I want to pay you in crypto, which me and a million or two other people, or a million or 2 million other people think should have the same value as your product in dollars? Like, would you take that payment from them? Going to the capital. There's no items here, I believe. No items of note, not that it matters. Yeah, 2 secrets, both in manholes. So now the shoe is on the other foot. Whereas the second battle of the game, the Crimson Soldiers were out killing the disenfranchised nobles in the streets. Now they're on the receiving end. So to some degree, it looks like there is some manipulation of Dolph as well. But so, and that's my ultimate point, is that like the foundational pieces of what you need to live are already going to be and right, kitty bit. Well, like the foundational pieces of like life in civilized life, I should say, are really anything. But no, we'll say civilized life. They're already going to be structured in such a way that those people are going to want payments for what they provide in their fiat currencies, like the dollar, the pound, the yen, whatever the case may be. Does he have plasma wave? He does not. I think I have both of those. I know I have both of his spells though. So, and obviously if you're buying food from them, like, you don't really have a cause to say, I don't care what you think, I still want I'm moving here. I still want to buy your product in cryptocurrency. And they're just not going to sell you the product. And then as you move up the chain from there, you start to say, okay, so if they're supplying companies that turn those base elements into products, those are probably going to want their payments in the same fiat currencies, or at least ones that are easily transactionable, so that they can pay off who they're buying stuff from. Then you get to further up into the supplier chain, so Walmart, so on and so forth. They're going to want the same kind of currency for the same kind of reason. You might at some point get high enough to where somebody's willing to take a payment in cryptocurrency, but it's so far removed from the base of what you need for survival that at that point it's like, well, is it really useful as a transactional currency? And that's where I would be like, yeah, not really. So that kind of hurts that argument for crypto. And there have been transactions for it, but the most notable one I can think of is it was like a house or a building in Miami was bought with crypto a few years ago. But again, that's like the very high end of the supply chain for that particular product. It was the end result. Pretty sure you can move far enough to. Yeah, so I'll have to get a couple of people around him. So then the other question is, okay, if we're not looking at it as an asset class, that's a good question. Let me see if I can find how much that initially was even purchased for. Alright, here we go. Let me do an in-battle save in case. Let's stop it and then we'll restart it. Just because it seems not to want to let me do that. But in the meantime, here we go. Hey, what's going on, Danny? So yeah, here we go. One of Miami's most expensive penthouses in the largest known cryptocurrency deal, $22.5 million. And they even had another one earlier this year before the whole SBF debacle. Here's one of the things I need to subscribe to. Let's see if we can see it in fortune. Yeah. Oh, did they? It's funny that they're removing these so quickly. Okay, that's 8-month-old article. Usually they still be up. I'll have to do some background searching to see if I can find. I mean, yeah, like basically super luxury is where you're going to see it make more sense for a crypto purchase, but then I wouldn't say it's necessarily a bad thing to have crypto if you're a billionaire, if for no other reason than to keep your finger on the pulse of it. It makes sense in that regard to me if you have the capital to do so and it doesn't really hurt you. Like, forgetting ratios, if you have $1 billion and you have, let's say, 50 million in crypto, you can lose the 50 million and it doesn't really do anything to you because you still have 950 million left in net worth. Like, I think you'll be fine. and you'll make that back up just off interest alone, even before the interest rate increase. Let me turn that down a little bit. So at this level, crypto makes more sense to me than for like a normal person, because then the ratio aspect does come into effect as far as like how much of your money is into it. And this is the second part of where I think there's something to be asked about crypto, is that its selling point is also kind of its biggest weakness, because one of the biggest selling points of crypto is, besides the security aspect of it, it's the decentralization aspect of it. Like, there's no one thing it's tied to, ostensibly. But the problem with that is, if, like with the SBF thing, there was actually a few years ago in Turkey, disappeared with $2 billion. Yeah, I literally don't even know what happened to him. I still haven't found out about it, and I've been looking for a while. But he took off with $2 billion of a crypto exchange, and it's like, if you're a normal person putting your money there, and somebody disappears, you have no recourse for like going to somebody. It's just, my shit is gone. So let's see, did they ever get him back? Is this, you know what? So one of the things I want to do with what I get from subscriptions, and that's also why I don't do a donate thing, because at least with the subscriptions you get an email. But what I'm going to do is use that to subscribe to all these like sites like Fortune, Forbes, so on and so forth, that have this kind of information. And I need to create a Discord, so I'm going to post I guess I'll do it for myself. Well, actually, let me go back. So I'm going to post like the articles there that anybody finds interesting or would like to like delve more in on. So I'm going to create an email for, specifically for my Twitch, to use to sign up for all these things. So like this will be one, and I'm not limiting it to US based articles. So like this is from Times UK. So Japan, Germany, France, Italy, Australia, China, pretty much anything, anywhere that's like a reasonably reputable source of financial information is where I'm going to be applying subscriptions for articles to read into. So you can 40,000 years. But again, how can you get to them? But that's the other. So that's the other question about crypto is, does the decentralization hurt it? And it does if you're not assuming altruism based on whoever is founding whatever exchange or whatever currency. And from that point, that's where people start to say, okay, well, crypto should be regulated like all this other stuff. But people are only saying that after there's all these scams and dudes disappearing with billions of dollars. And it's like, all right, well, if you're asking for it to be regulated, that's a difficult undertaking, especially if you're trying to say regulate but also still be decentralized. I don't know how that works together. I'm not smart enough to figure that out. So that's where I think the question of crypto, it has a lot that it really has to answer for it to be as viable as it was pitched. Because the other thing is talking about fiat currencies. For anybody unaware, fiat currency is effectively a currency that is more or less a nation's currency. That's the easiest way to explain it. So, like, it's based on, there's a more intricate explanation about how it's based on the belief in the underlying structure that the currency is representing. But long and short of it, it's your basic nation's currency. And the strongest fiat currencies are like the ones we talked about, the dollar, the pound, the euro, even though they are having issues. Sorry, I'm turning the game back up so y'all can hear the game. Even though they're having issues, like, people still believe in the existence of these currencies. So then the question really starts to rear its head as, what would it take for crypto to really get into a position where it can be a transactionable currency and not just an asset class that you hold as an investment and you hope that somebody doesn't disappear with all your money. And I think for that to occur, see how far you go, right up to here. For that to occur, you would have to have something monumental occur, because you do have some currencies that are relatively unstable. So, like, Venezuelan currency has had a lot of issues with inflation even before the last couple of years. Really, this last year, honestly. But, like, even if we take into account Ukraine and Russia, and whatever currency destabilization effects they're feeling from their conflict, their war, it doesn't really have too outsized an effect on the world at large. But if you start to say, okay, what it would take, I think, a major currency like the dollar, the euro, the pound, the yen, like something more foundational to collapse for crypto to have the opportunity to step in as something that's transactionable. And even then, I would argue at that point, obviously that's going to be of some, like, concern, but there would also be larger concerns at the same time, because the currency just failed. Alright, for that to happen, that means there had to be some large, like, civilization level collapse or societal level collapse. So that's kind of where I'm at with crypto, in that it can be a useful asset class for investment, but there's a lot of caveats within that, I think. Like the trustworthiness of whoever is operating the exchange that you're working off of. And if that's one of the primary concerns, then that's like, okay, that's a big question in and of itself. Exactly. Like, when you start asking that question, like, do you realize, like, the scale of what would occur for a fiat currency that's, like, entrenched at this point to not become so? And it's a lot more than people actually consider. And even in the midst of war, still talking about getting cheeks. Pretty much, yeah. Like, and some people even saw it as like a if you got in early enough, it was. I don't think it's out of whack to say that there are some people that just viewed it as like a get rich quick scheme. Because I mean, that's kind of what it evolved into really rapidly. And if you sell people on, hey, you can do this, and you can do this, and you can get really wealthy with little effort on your part, especially considering how ruthless the economic state of some countries can be. I'm not surprised. So Eister, how do I basically the dynamic between Eamon and Sarah is that like they're heavily implied to be into each other, but they haven't like outright said anything yet. Actually, I want to move. No, I don't want to move him yet. Can I move her? Not yet either. So I don't doubt that that was a nice PG-13 way to say that they're going to have some kind of adult relationship outside of the context of the war in the game. Nice. I don't want to kill Xeno quite yet, but I did get the Mojo Rogue. What's the other item? Again, not that it matters. Oh, it's the gold axe. Oh, that really doesn't matter. Because I don't need the money anyways. But I'll probably still go pick it up. Just off principle. And so, I mean, I don't fault people for like wanting to get into crypto in the earlier stages without fully thinking about it, because it's like There's a underlying sense of economic desperation. If I'm just talking about the perspective of the U.S., there is an underlying sense of economic desperation, and if that's the case, then some people are going to be tight with what they're doing. Some people are going to be more willing to take chances that they might not otherwise take or might not be a good idea. So kind of the way the economy has evolved over, honestly, the last 40, 50 years has led to such a point in which things that would be useful, like crypto, at least if we're talking about just like the base underlying technology, can be turned into something more of a scam, unfortunately. I should be able to get rid of that. Okay. Let me make sure he's going to survive. He will. I mean, in the current economic outlook of the U.S. is a whole other issue to me, and then needs to be very strongly addressed. Or not, let me rephrase, not necessarily strongly addressed, but it needs to be paid attention to, because there are a lot of things currently that mirror the Gilded Age. And that was 150 years ago. And that's obviously not a fantastic thing to have going on. It's kind of why I would say, well, not kind of, it actually is why, like, there was an establishment of the middle class in the US, is because things were starting to get stretched so far that there wasn't a real definitive middle class beforehand, at least not in like as big a size as has been able to be prevalent. And I mean, I would say we were pretty close to being on the verge of a revolution stateside for that reason. So it was kind of a band-aid to say, okay, let's give some leeway, and hopefully that'll keep enough people, I don't want to say complacent necessarily, but it'll be enough people will not want to like revolt and have things go very much sideways out of sheer numbers. Alright, he might be gone. Yep. Again, not that it matters, because yeah, that's pretty much the goal, is let's just keep people basically functional enough that they don't start like going crazy on us. Unfortunately, what's also kind of occurring is I use kind of too much, but what's occurring is all of the recent gains of the upper class over the last couple of decades were put in place by so many policies from 40, 50 years ago. So we're also kind of in a situation where like the game is already decided, it's just fine tuning at this point. Can I hit him from this side? Yeah, let's get rid of him. But there's just been so much of a push in the opposite direction lately, especially since the 80s, that I think people don't really realize, like, there's a distinct difference now in wealth levels, and I feel like that difference didn't even necessarily exist to the same degree in the 90s. I feel like it accelerated since then. Oh yeah. So since that's his pupil, I'll probably let Zohar get the final blow on him. So weaken him up a little bit for the next turn. And I'll also spread out just a little bit. And it's like, on the one hand, I get it, because if you're taking the long view, like a lot of people in those positions are able to, I do not have any magic left with Ash. And then you want to say, okay, I want to set up my kids, my grandkids, my great grandkids so far down the line, so that none of them have anything to worry about. It makes sense just from like a biological imperative perspective. And the way you do that is accumulate vast sums of money. The easiest way to do that, I should say. And that said, we also need to, like, I'm in favor of raising tax rates and actually closing some tax loopholes. And not assuming that just because somebody is making millions of dollars, they're gonna now start passing that down the line through trickle-down economics. Because, like, it's assuming, to me, it's assuming a level of altruism. Damn, you really didn't get that kill with Salamander? Come on now. Let me pull Clint back so he doesn't get killed. But it's assuming a level of altruism to somebody that more than likely doesn't have that level of altruism to get to that point in life anyways. So it's kind of it's a really false narrative that crumples upon further examination to me. And perhaps union corruption in the 80s had some amount of influence with that. So there's not really like a good simple here's what we should do answer. And I can tell. And again, I wouldn't say I was smart enough to figure that out anyways. Alright, last turn, so Zohar can finally get this. I thought he was just going to come up and do a straight up attack, but he was casting back. Finally. Again, not that we need the money, but whatever, it's nice. We don't need to resupply. I just want to equip that wand onto Zohar, honestly. And then I also got that robe. Wait, who has a robe? There he is. Anything else I need to equip? I do not think so. And the items don't really matter at this point anyways. Yeah, exactly. Could have been. Oh, hey, what's going on, Holly? How you doing? Alright, we're ready for the final battle. And then we'll go into this other game. And it being the last battle, there's no secrets or anything, so I'm not really going to do pretense. I'm just going to blast off right off the map. So, this is the son of Eris the Sage. And that's why I mentioned, like, if you had seen earlier, you would notice a facial resemblance. Why does he have that weird hand thing going on? Oh. Yeah, sorry, I was leaning into it. I need to start doing that. There we go. Cleanse with fire, so he says. Alright, we're done with all the talking. Now we just have to blast him a couple times and this thing is over. And so we go back to the very first song in the game. I like how he's kind of grooving to it. So is he a little bit. Them, not so much. And this dude, especially from the back, he's getting it. Okay, so I don't want to overexpose Ash. So let's actually have our mages come and do some of the first blasting. So we were just talking crypto and diving a little bit more into it than the first time. And its usefulness as a currency and as an investment asset class. And did a little bit of talking about the overall economic state of the U.S. in particular that led to people being more willing to invest in crypto without necessarily doing the amount of due diligence that they otherwise would have done. He can move up there. Let me see how far he can go. So, I think next we'll talk about energy from an economic point of view, obviously, and some recent news that had just come out earlier this week. I think it was Monday. Yeah, we talked crypto for probably the last 30, 40 minutes. Not that I need to lower at this point, but whatever. Oh, what am I doing? It's better to be hesitant than to go all in with capital you might not have. do that. Yeah, I've figured out how to at least ban bots at this point. Get rid of you. Really? That's good, I guess. So I did talk a little bit about stocks the other day. And we can recap that really quick. Well, I'll talk about it in the concept of options, which I'll need to get more into derivatives as well. But I would say it depends on what you're doing with the stock. And first, let me say, I am not a financial advisor. I do work in finance, but I am not licensed to be a financial advisor. So I generally do not give like, you should invest in this kind of advice. It's more just, okay, how do we get to where people understand the concepts and understand what they're seeing? That's more my concern. So that said, I wouldn't say the stock market is anything that you have to be like too scared of. One of the best things to do to start dipping your toe into investing, if we're talking about just pure stock investing, is start with a company that you know. Like something that you know kind of how they operate. How far can you move? So basically all these can attack. I'm pretty sure they can move far enough down. Yep. So start with a company that you know, like something that you buy a lot. So I was talking to somebody from my side job and I asked her what she was interested in. And like, is there any kind of product that you buy consistently from the company? Like whatever the product is. And she mentioned like, oh well, there's this one company that I like the jeans that they produce. So I usually get those. I was like, okay, well go with that. Like if you know enough about them to say, okay, I like that they do these kinds of jeans. That's enough to start off with. And then from there you start to do things like you look into, and actually a really good example of this is you look into who the executives are. Because the executives, more than people think, also have an influence on the perception of the company. Because the thing about finance, especially with regard to stocks, is it's honestly largely psychology with money involved. So how are people going to react in XYZ situation or ABC scenario, provided they have whatever number of caveats to their situation? Like there's obviously all the numbers behind it and whatnot, but at its core, it's how are people going to react. So for instance, like Dogecoin and GameStop, you saw they had a lot of fluctuations in the positive when Elon Musk was randomly tweeting stuff about it. And I said a whole bunch of stuff about him already, which I can send you a link of like that. And in the same vein, like Tesla has taken a hit before because of Elon talking. So as much as stocks are supposed to be based on the value of the underlying asset, whoever is towards the forefront of the company can also have a very strong effect on people's perception of it, regardless of the quality of whatever product that they're producing or whatever service they're providing. And I figured that would happen, but I kind of wanted to put the guys in the front line to force them to blast at him or blast at them as opposed to attacking Ash directly. So I kind of did a sacrifice play there since I extended a lot, but I also just want to like get through this last battle. And it does have some sense of gamble to a degree, but like at its core, it's supposed to be about what the underlying asset is worth. Which even then, that has a strong link to its perception. Nice block. Any kind. Yeah, exactly, Kitty. Like, and I'm not overly fond of social media, especially Twitter, because like, the thought of people broadcasting their thoughts worldwide at any given time is kind of like, you should probably like stop for a second and think about it. And it seems like a lot of people really don't. Pretty much, yeah. So, stocks are like anything else. Like, the more attention you pay to what's going on around them, the more you'll feel your apprehension go away as far as like what's actually going on. And just as like a general rule, you want to not necessarily think about things that were valuable at one point in time. You want to think about what's going to be valuable in the future as far as investment. So you don't want to caught in the history of it. One of the things of like looking at stocks is past history does not indicate future performance. And like historically, the stock market, if we're talking about things like the S&P 500 or anything similar, does give about 10% return over the long haul. But that's also saying that like, even though it averages out to that, that doesn't mean that it's going to be 10% every single year. Like there's going to be years where it comes down, like what happened earlier in COVID when they took a huge drop, or what happened in 2007, 2008. So it's very much about like playing the long game with stocks. Well, that's another huge unfortunate part of social media is that, like, obviously there have been scams in media for a long time, like even ones that made it mainstream, like Miss Cleo, for instance. But to your point, like she didn't have the kind of audience that social media grants people. these two first, and then I'll finish off though. Well, I think there used to be a level of barrier to entry, and that served as a way to offer legitimacy to things. And that's also where social media kind of falters, is social media does remove barriers to entry. And normally that would be the checklist of like, okay, this is legitimate enough to get like a voice. And then I think this is the Death Angel forum is called. Oh, Dark Angel. I don't even remember what Dynamo Home does. I don't even know if I actually have access to that spell as Ash. That might be the one spell I don't have. But see, except for some dicking around, it took all of 2 turns to get to this point in the battle. And it's just gonna take one more turn and then this fight is over. Not a bad spell. Might knock out Eamon. Nope, not even that. I'll heal them. I'll let Eamon get a kill on that mage. And then we'll knock out Dolph. Yeah, I mean, humans are social creatures, so it's not unexpected for us to act like that. Because that's also part of, that's also what we were talking about as part of the underlying thing of crypto, is the more people, the way crypto was trying to come into prominence was the more people that believed it, the more legitimacy was led to the argument of it as a viable currency. But that just doesn't necessarily, that's not the case. It's how things actually work. And another issue is also, especially in the US, I don't see it as much in other countries, in my experience, is the tendency to also follow who's the loudest person. Not necessarily the person that causes the most thought or makes the most sense, but whoever is just speaking the loudest. And that's the game. So it took 3 turns for the final battle. Could have taken 2, honestly. Thanks, Oxter. Thanks, Holly. And hey, Splice, what's up? Thank you for the GT. stock is basically a way to invest in either the assets as a whole, and this is a very, very bare bones explanation, or invest in the company based on the belief of its products. So it's a way to, for the normal person, it's a way for them to have some kind of access to a company, and for the companies themselves, it's basically a way to raise funds. And at least in terms of stocks. Oh, sorry, I keep on going back off the camera. At least in terms of stocks, traditionally speaking, you can grow your wealth faster through investment than you can through working. And this is from a historical point of view as far as the return. If we're saying historically that you can get 10% return year over year with dividends reinvested, looking at it from the other point of view, how many people can, let's say every year, get a 10% increase? Yeah, nobody needs to see my face. Like, get a 10% increase in their income, and that is, especially at this point in time, a lot harder to do. It would have been easier in the 80s. But then again, stock return was also higher at that point. So, like, that's why people invest in stocks as a way to get part ownership of the company. The company issues stock as a way to build funds for a myriad of reasons. Generally, it might be because they need the funds for like some amount of operations, especially to get started, because you usually don't see too many reissuing of stocks from a company. If a company is doing that several times, that's kind of a red flag. But that's why you have an initial public offering, an IPO, and that's when a lot of people get their stock in the company. Crypto, ostensibly the reason crypto existed was a very tight security, decentralized currency as a way to have more control and access to your funds without having the regulation involved that a lot of prominent countries do. And without having to suffer penalties, tax, or whatever the case may be. If you do have it in a particular fiat currency. Now he's activating the Flame of Judgment, which destroyed himself. In another time gate. But, I mean, I wouldn't say never buy stocks. Crypto I would be more wary of, but I wouldn't say to never buy stocks.
gdje ci treba mir. Duša u igri puna snage.
I'll be quiet for this part.
Nada u budući miran san. Let je let i pad je let, c'est la vie, mon ami. U sjaju je linija neba i nas. Tuga svijeta ne gori, neka ljubav se rodi. I pad je let, nadaj se, mon ami. I kad se pada, postoji nada, c'est la vie, mon ami.
Clayton with his big ass arms.
Prekriti snijeg, moja duša ne gori, neka vječnost se rodi. Let je let i pad je let, mon ami.
I thought there was a couple of extra cutscenes when you get to Vandal class, but I honestly can't remember which ones those are. But that's Vandal Hearts. Maybe this. But I don't know that we will be playing the next one. Although somebody did mention that there is a mod.
Sweetie found, sweetie love.
Oh,
We are
excuse me.
found, we found. Sweet found we for the field. We fire, follow down. We found Lisa, your love, feed the light. What I found. We found superior love, we feel.
My bad. Didn't mean to interrupt the song. Uh, somebody did mention that there is a mod for Vandal Hearts 2 that eliminates what was my main issue with it when I experienced it. And it's, if you're not familiar with tactics games, it's hard to describe. But they basically have simultaneous movement. So I can show that really quick as to why I'm not playing that next. If you've seen, it's mostly been one side moves, then the other side moves. That is a common way to do it in tactics games, or like Final Fantasy Tactics, you go one at a time. Yeah, maybe I'll look at 3, and maybe I'll look at this mod as well. But the way Vandal Hearts 2 works is simultaneous movement. You and the enemy move at the same time, which means you have to guess where the enemy is going to position itself. And that game I haven't heard of. I'll have to look into that one. But instead of dealing with this right now, and if you can DM me the name of that, I'll actually save it in Dealfield Chronicles. Let me do that. Put that in the search so I have it saved. Got it. Thank you. But what we're going to do instead is this game, Dark Savior. I have not played part of it. And while I let this kind of show you what the game is about, I'm going to pull up this article. Actually, I need to just do that. Side by side for a second. It's rough. should be better. How's that? Yeah, I never adjusted the volume for this yet. I just made sure it worked. So this is what I'm kind of going to be talking about from the economic perspective as far as this nuclear fusion breakthrough. So it was a few days ago, the National Ignition Facility in California, they actually had a nuclear fusion energy test that had a net positive output. Normally, what the case has been is that the fusion has been possible, but there hasn't been a net positive outcome. It's always been a negative outcome. Now, since that's the case, as that is able to progress further along, and this is still projection-wise, maybe 2040 before it's like really commercially viable. But going forward, this is something that is going to have a lot of implications on energy industries. And so that's kind of what I'm going to talk about. And also what, like, the future of that, once it's commercially viable, the path it might take. I can imagine quite a lot, Holly, and that's why we're going to talk about it today. Probably need to set buttons for this. Let me turn this down while I do that so it's not jumping all over the place. Here we go, input. Pad. And I kind of like this interface. It's a lot more like visually enjoyable. So I'm digging this interface right now. Okay. Yeah, it is. Oh, now I have to wait for this to catch up. So it is a very big deal. There is one of the things I was doing research on is I'm trying to figure out how to pronounce this correctly. Deuterium is one of the sources of fuel for nuclear fusion. That's also known as heavy water. So in order to have production levels of nuclear fusion technology for energy, I mean, we'd be looking at water depletion, which is obviously a huge problem. Damn, how long does this take? Apparently a long time. Excuse me. So it is a naturally occurring element that does help. Let me see if I can close this and have my button still set. Okay, at least the buttons are still set. So what I think is likely the case is obviously like gas, coal, those are going to have impacts in their oil. They're all going to have impacts in their business in their businesses and their industries if this becomes viable, depending on how these companies within those industries start to position themselves. As far as the usage of nice works, as far as the usage of it, generally with technology, what we see is you try to get efficiency first. Ooh, that's choppy. Okay. Nope, still chopping. Alright, sounds fine now. I'll have to monitor the sound. Yeah, they did. Also, look, wall meat. Big ass pieces of it, too. But yeah, they'll probably work on efficiency first, then miniaturization, and then the likely scenario would be, I think, would be trying to go into spacefaring. Because if you can create part of the issue with spacefaring is the expense of it. But if you can create something that has a very high energy yield output, then you take away a lot of the problems. As far as getting the fuel itself, I had mentioned that deuterium is one of the fuels for the nuclear fusion process. It is in large quantities, obviously pretty far away in Jupiter. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a lean towards commercial, basically space truckers, the movie. Like having commercial expeditions there to harness as much deuterium as possible, either for transport back, likely, or for use in fuel to trials for. But this is like, when Kitty Bit was saying that that's a historic event, it's like the segue into viable space travel. At least like within the solar system, because then you have to take into account speed and whether or not you'll be able to have people survive trips to certain distances. But provided that you're not using something quite as rudimentary as combustion like we generally use for engines, if this is able to create a segue into a better form of engine, at least as far as like something that large in an expedition sense, that also could be a place where you see other scientific advancement. I'm trying to be very I'm trying to parse my words very carefully and not say too much in either direction. But that also could have very strong implications on some national economies. Like, if I recall correctly, Mongolia has a very strong coal industry. Obviously, Russia has a very strong oil and gas industry. So is there going to be geopolitical implications with this? Likely is not. because any country that is able to harness the potential of that and remove the dangers without affecting the yield too much is going to have a distinct advantage. And the other benefit of nuclear fusion is that, again, we've had it, it's not something that's just brand new. What we're familiar with is nuclear fission. And nuclear fission is the breaking apart of cells, the breaking apart of atoms, and that's what is also creating toxic waste as a byproduct, or nuclear waste as a byproduct. Nuclear fusion, because you're not breaking apart things, you don't have nearly as much waste as a byproduct, and it creates, if I recall correctly, 4 times the yield output as nuclear fission does. So you're talking about a cleaner source of energy that has a higher yield. So again, it's the next step is usually consistently working, I should say that first, and then efficiency. And that face is nothing but a mess of pixels and 2 angry green eyes. I guess I can change the title. Yeah, because I'm not playing Vandal Hearts anymore. Thank you for the heads up, Ister. There we go. Should be changed now, I would think. You know, obviously, the U.S. also has a very strong coal, oil, gas industry. I would hope this is not where like lobbying would come too strong into effect and slow it down, because it also would work against us, and then we're still having a lot of depletion of land. But then we're talking about two different things that are the same thing. 6 of one, half dozen of the other. So I've heard people say is are we depleting land by doing constant mining operations, or are we depleting water, or is there another source of fuel that we can find that is not so destructive? Oh, are you familiar with Dark Savior Keybit? Sorry, I missed that mess in the title. Looks like everything's working so far. I think it actually looks better on the stream from what I can tell. And I can very much see how pixelated it is on my side. Nice, Roy. Yeah, I think this is... Alright, so then you're very much familiar with the two infamous sequences, well, let me say, the distinct infamous parts of this game. And I am going to do those as legitimately as possible. So there's gonna be some pain there. And this game actually has some really good music too. And he's wrong, you have to leave the room. Alright. Yeah, that works. There we go. I was like, how do I run again? So he's talking about that. You got some camera control. You can shift the camera. The Z, I think it is button, is for running. Yeah, yeah. This on the other side of the corridor. So parts of this I will have to focus in this game because even though I have beat it, it's it has some especially notorious sequences. But we're gonna do it in order. Obviously there is a timer in the bottom corner. Damn, that's not supposed to look like that. That's supposed to be gray. Jack is a blue snake bird. So there's obviously some transparency issues here. Yeah, that texture is just like gone. So we're definitely gonna have to look at this later. But this is why we test things, to see how they look. So I have to see if I can figure out this transparency issue. And then I also notice it with the ooze on the ground. But I will explain the timer in the meantime. So this game has something called a parallel system. And the way it works is, depending on when you get to a certain point in this area, you influence what part of the game you're going to see. Ah! Almost stuck the landing. I keep on forgetting what's... There we go. So if you make it to the captain's cabin when the timer is blue like it is now, you get the third parallel. The timer just switched to yellow. So that gives you the second parallel. However, the second parallel you can also use to access the fifth parallel, which is hidden, by making it to the captain's cabin. So in the hidden fifth parallel, you get to the captain's cabin in this time frame, but you also have to die in that fight. Yeah, pretty much exactly. Like, you're going through most of the same areas, with a few exceptions, but you just see different stories. But it's all that plays into the ultimate story of the game as well. The first parallel, which is the one that you're expected to experience while you're getting used to the controls of the game, is you get here, or you get to the captain's cabin with a red timer. I think there's a little platform for me to stand on. Yeah. But since we want to go for the first parallel, we kind of want to take our time and get used to the controls anyways. Everybody is lying face down because they're all getting bodied like Holly in Mario Party and Mario Kart. So he's making a very big foreshadowing here. I can't remember where this lets out. Just right over here. So he says it's a shortcut, but it's really not. It just takes you to this room. I mean, I guess it is a shortcut, but it's not a usual one. Tax season, yeah. I'm here to witness the miserable end of you weakling. That's friendly. Oh yeah, at least it's only $68. That's not too bad. Throw it onto your, no, don't do that. And then this is... And then... It gets you over here. I think there's an item on here. Ah. Actually, this is the way you're supposed to come. I think this is actually the way I first went. When I first played the game, this is the way I went just because I was curious about that hole. The way you're supposed to go is up here. But for some reason, I couldn't even, like, see that as a kid. So actually, let me go this way, because I don't think I've ever gone this way. I think the first time I played this, I went around the other way, and it took forever. Like, I want to say my timer was probably at like 20, 30 minutes. I can knock over this one. Yeah, I'm almost certain I've never gone this way when I played this. So question, Holly, and I would assume the answer is yes. And if you don't know, that's fine, but does Canada have like a pretty prominent oil industry? Get some chocolate. Chocolate is not to eat, it's actually a currency in this game. The meat is to eat. And then up here. That sounds pretty accurate, KB. That makes sense. I don't know what the point of that one is. Oh yeah, that. I think it's to let you see. Actually, I should be able to hit it over. No, can't get it. But this is where the shortcut leads you to. And this one, I kind of like that about this game, is that it does challenge you to do a lot of different things. It does ask you to think outside of the box a bit and to try things you wouldn't think are normally, I wouldn't say possible, but would normally come to mind in the game. I've never played Beyond Oasis. Is it a pretty good game? And then we come to the captain's cabin. Gasp, health, murder. So this is also a text indication of where you are in the timer. So if you come here when it's blue, you'll have a different text, like saying, oh hey, lock the door, before Balan gets here. If you come here when it's yellow, Balan will be in the room with them. Ooh. Try not to die. Thankfully I have all that meat. Ah, gotcha. And Garen has the Link syndrome of picking stuff up over his head. Oh, sorry, I need to project my voice more. I was saying, I would imagine that Canada has a pretty strong oil industry. Is that the case? To your knowledge, that is? What? There we go. Oh, and I can dive off into the water here, but that would cause a death where he deducts points from me. So Should be fine to do this fight without having to heal. And there are some weird translation things in this game. Just kind of take it as it is and run with it. So if you're holding back, you have a knockdown attack. And if you hold down the attack button, you can charge up your attack. Also, if you hold back, you automatically block. Ah, he interrupted. Oh, I forgot the health is, the field health is separate from battle health. Also, if you have your bar full when you knock down an opponent in the second round, you can do a capture as opposed to a finishing attack. Ah! Block me. Really? Oh, industry is struggling a bit there. I wonder if they'll use this as a pivot into other energy sources. And that's actually another question I have about this news coming out is, sorry, there's a dog here that I'm scratching the ears on. I wonder if things like if there will be more money put into things like the super collider, so Cuban might be aware. Hold on a second, let me let this dog outside. Oh, he's getting pawed up. Hey, you wanna go outside? Come on. Come on, go outside. Okay. The dog's name is Luna. I'm helping dog sit. a little bit. Roy, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for discussing the game and energy and crypto. I definitely look forward to the next time you pop by. We can talk about more stuff. So what I was talking about before was that there is a super collider here in Texas, in the Dallas area, a town called Waxahachie that they were building back in the 90s. And they stopped building it partly because of the cost of the project. So they thought it was going to be in the 100 millions, then it got into they got a budget for about $2 billion and ended up getting to like $8.25 billion in cost. So the project was shut down. Being that Texas kind of likes to do its own thing, I'm wondering whether or not they'll try to do something like reinvest in the collider. Especially since the nuclear fusion thing was in California, and if you're not from here, then you are not aware, but if you are from here, you know very much how people in Texas feel about anything Californian. Luna's just here vegging out next to my feet. I'm saying I'm looking forward to it too, Roy. But yeah, that makes me wonder whether or not we're going to start looking into, I don't even necessarily want to call them alternative energies because that sounds diminutive. But I mean, there's no really other way to say it. But I wonder if we'll start having more of a focus on that from a competition standpoint, and from the standpoint of not trying to become obsolete. If you're heavily in oil and gas in Texas especially. So that's going to be what's curious to me. You would think, but the oil industry is exceptionally strong here. Like, even as far as like you were mentioning solar earlier, Dallas should be much further along in terms of renewable energy sources than where it is, because Dallas is in the middle of a sun-baked plain for the majority of the year on the edge of Tornado Alley. So, for the large part of the year, you're either exposed to high wind, let me say moderate wind, or a lot of sun. But we're pretty far behind as far as that goes. And a lot of that is because, like, the strength of the oil and gas industry here. dialogue is pretty straight, pretty cut and dry. So we'll see how that plays in the future. It's whether oil and gas industry, excuse me, it's whether oil and gas industries will pivot. Are they going to invest in the nuclear energy that might be coming? Are they going to try to go in a different direction to provide competition? Are they going to dig their heels in? Like, what are they going to do? And yeah, there are the government mandates away from oil and gas, but I mean, we probably should have had those some time ago. But even the delay on those has probably been strongly influenced by oil and gas. There are pipelines that could be made to disperse the energies. But that's the thing, it's hard to charge people for stuff that's free. There was actually a recent scandal with Getty Images, if you've seen it. There's an artist, Carol Highsmith, who submitted a lot of photos to the Smithsonian Library. Something like 19,000 photos. She has her own, yeah, exactly. She has her own thing with the Smithsonian. And Getty Images sent her a cease and desist, if I remember correctly, and a bill stating copyright for one of her images that she took on her website. So, if people will find a way to charge for free stuff, they will. She actually was suing them for almost 1.5 billion because they had a judgment 3 years before where they did something similar, and that allowed her to charge or to do a suit for 3 times the amount, because originally it's supposed to be like 468 million. I'll save and I'll pull up that article, and then I think that'll be it for today. And I'd like to do a little more research on the energy topic and then discuss that further. But I wanted to kind of bring it up just to poke the bear a little bit. There we go. Alright, so definitely need to work on that a bit. Yeah, the Carol Highsmith collection at the Library of Congress. She's been doing photos for like 80 years. I'm sorry, 40 years. And yeah, they tried to get $120 off her, and in return are getting sued for, or we're getting sued for over $1 billion. And apparently they're still doing it. And this is how they got to that number. Basically, yeah, so what she did was she submitted the photos to the Library of Congress to be in public domain so anybody can use them. They would charge people, they would basically be the go between and charge people for images that could be found for free. But somebody looked on her website and saw them and didn't do their research, so they tried to charge her for it. So I guess she went back. I don't know if it was just roughly 19,000. Hey, Mercy, thanks for the raid. Hey, what's going on, 13? And did you finish up Persona 5, Mercy? I saw you were doing that earlier. Oh, what's up, Green Tea? Oh, what up, Artemis? Let me remember to Persona 5 finished up Mercy. I still don't have like a clip shout out thing yet, but I can do that one. Maybe the chat's a little easier to see. Maid services. I think I missed a lot. Services, huh? Oh, by the way, let me show off first. Let me show off this that Danny made. So Danny did those, and those just went active yesterday. But it was good. We were talking some about crypto and stocks as concepts more deeply than the first time we talked about them. Talked about the kind of state of the U.S. economy while we were finishing up Vandal Hearts and why the state of the economy had led to the advent of crypto to some degree. We started to get into a Dark Savior on the Saturn just now, and we were doing a little bit of talk of the recent energy news as far as nuclear fusion having a net positive output recently. Last week, actually. This week, actually. Like 4 or 5 days ago. And then we were just talking about how things that are free should be used more, but you can't charge people for free stuff, or at least you think you can't. And then we started talking about Carol Highsmith. So, for anybody unaware, she is an artist in her mid late 70s, been going across the U.S. for like 40 years, taking pictures and submitting them to the Library of Congress. Getty Images had apparently been charging people more or less to serve as a go-between, which isn't necessarily the case. That's what they're arguing. But she submitted the photos to be free. They were charging people for them, or sending out copyright slash cease and desist things for people using them, even though they're in the Library of Congress, and they sent one to her because of they saw one of her images on her website. So she came to find out that they'd been doing that and started suing them for a lot of money, billion. So yeah, that's what we were talking about. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, you can charge people for anything if I actually have a mind to as a business. So even you can charge somebody to produce the thing that you're charging them for, or trying to. But yeah, they're currently being sued for over $1 billion. So we'll see how that works. This was a while ago, so it's probably already settled. And probably not for the billion, but she probably got maybe 10 or so million out of it, I would imagine. I don't know necessarily that's going to stop getting images, but at least that's something to be aware of. As far as images are concerned, is and you can probably find a free one somewhere, so you don't need to necessarily go through Getty. And then, like I said, besides that, we were talking about the nuclear fusion at the excuse me, National Ignition Facility in California, and how that might have some implications on oil and gas industries, and whether or not the super collider in Texas might get more attention, since Texas likes to be a little bit antagonistic towards California, and that's where the nuclear fusion test was. 13, thanks for the follow. Oh, I didn't do, I guess, any kind of spiel, so I'm pretty sure most people are familiar, but if you're not, and I know everybody here is familiar with Mercy, but if you're not, you should go check her out. She plays a lot of Rainbow Six, and she's been playing some, like, more recent RPGs. She's done Persona 5. Yeah, I am a tester. She's done Okami, and occasionally we'll see her on Cart. So you should go check out Mercy. She's actually a really nice person, unlike Holly. But what I do is I discuss financial and economic topics, because I find that a lot of people would like more information about those things, but they're not really sure or comfortable of where and when to be able to do so. So I wanted to provide a platform for people to do that. I'm generally playing a game while I do it as a backdrop. So if it's an older game, it's one that I probably already played or beaten before, so I can spend more time focusing on the conversation while the game is just kind of like a visual stimulus while we are talking. So that's why we were playing Vandal Hearts, and that's also why we are playing Dark Savior. It's a game that I beat a while ago, and I do not think that most people are familiar with it. I'm Roy from Kitty Big Games. I'm most familiar with it, and I was just checking them out too. And I guess you can check out Holly. I mean, I guess, but whatever. But yeah, so I found Dark Savior is a game that I've liked, especially for the story of it. And it's more of an action adventure platformer, so I thought that would be something that people would find interesting. So that's why we're playing that as our backdrop game. Besides that, soon enough, I'm going to start subscribing to most financial or economically driven like articles or sites that I can find, and I need to start a Discord for it, but I'll be uploading those as PDFs to Discord. So that's where we'll be able to like source more things to talk about, or if somebody finds something interesting that they want to discuss and kind of get a different view on it, we're gonna go like talk about it there, or it's gonna be able to be posted there and talked about there. So yeah, that's kind of the summation. Oh, and I guess eventually I might do recommend a conversation, a free academic journal. I will look into that. Let me run a search on it so I can have it pulled up to look at. I think I got it. Yeah, got it. Thank you. Appreciate that, Danny. And that's kind of the idea, is to have people feel more comfortable with like what they see or read or hear about in like the world of finance and economics, so that they can make their own decisions. Because I am not a financial advisor. I do work in finance, but I'm not giving advice. I'm just trying to convey information and follow what seems to me to be logic trails as to why I think about a certain way about a certain thing. So that is my spiel. Sorry, it's a long one. I don't really have it rehearsed yet. So we are just about to finish, actually. Because I have not really eaten yet today, and it's already almost 4 o'clock. And I wasn't really planning on going too much longer than now, because it's almost about 3 hours. I still, like Holly said, I'm a tester. I'm not a streamer. So I don't have the 6, 7, 8 hour stream stamina. I don't even know what I'm gonna make my jelly. There's so many things I could say from that, but I'm just gonna let that slide. I do have my jams I need to use up though. I might do that tomorrow. I'll do like a wheat bagel with cream cheese and the strawberry sage cabernet jam. Yeah, yeah, that sounds about right, Danny. Plus, I don't know if I want to get too far over like 3, 4 hours, just because I do want to keep discussion towards the forefront of uh, what we're doing, and I don't want to too often. I mean, there will be some games that sometimes I'll just like hop on because I want to play a game, um, like Resident Evil 2, because I do have a relatively a new computer, so I would like to play some newer stuff, like Resident Evil 2, Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'll probably start to delve into that once they release the next one. So I can do Crisis Core Remake 1, integrate Remake 2, and maybe by then they'll have Remake 3 coming out. I don't know. But there will be a couple of games that I'll just hop on to just play the game. And then maybe eventually, we'll see, I'll do a cooking stream or something to that accord. And possibly practice guitar or do some sketching on stream as well. But my minimum is most definitely not 4 hours. That's not even my maximum yet. And I'm definitely nowhere near 6 hours. So let's see. Rated Lexi. You know what? I think. Oh, yo, what's up, Salila? A cooking stream with the maid outfit. I am not DG Medic. That is not happening. No, I can't tell you if I guess the cooking stream does become a thing. I can tell you what I plan on cooking if you're so inclined. Yo, what up, Clark? How you doing today? A $2 steak, not so much. I'm not doing too bad. I'm just about to be looking to pop off soon so I can get something to eat. I don't know, I'm not really busy today though, so maybe I can do some research afterwards, after I get something to eat, and pop on and just play a game. So I'll take that under consideration, see if I can fix anything. But no, what I'm going to... Okay, so if we do a cooking stream, the first thing I plan on making is going to be an espresso and cocoa rub duck breast. And that's going to come with either a pomegranate polenta or a fig risotto or some combination thereof, with a blackberry gastrique as a sauce. How often do I stream? Like 2 or 3 days a week for, you know, like polenta? It's basically cornmeal. 2 or 3 days a week for generally 2 to 3 hours is how long I stream. What's up, Eister? I don't want people to accumulate points too quickly. Because apparently Ashley already has enough for the cocktail redeem, and I've been streaming for like 3 weeks. I wouldn't even, definitely not a living. It's not even, I wouldn't say a hobby necessarily, insofar as streaming the game itself. It's more of a, I guess, the medium or the proxy by which I like to discuss like economic and financial information with people outside of like my normal realm. So like I talk about it with friends, I talk about it with coworkers, but as I was saying before, I find that some people are overwhelmed by the amount of information there is. So I'm kind of acting and not as a full-on expert, but as like somebody that works in the financial industry, like deciphering the kind of things that people are coming across. And hopefully it helps people make solid financial decisions. Um, I don't know about making a living out of it, but I appreciate the sentiment, Clark. So, I stir espresso and cocoa dusted duck breast with a pomegranate polenta or a fig risotto. Polenta is pretty much like cornmeal, more or less. Um, and blackberry gastrique. So this is polenta, like, yeah, cornmeal. And then gastrique is an Italian sweet and sour sauce that you make with a champagne vinegar. So that will be, yeah. Thankfully, as people popped around enough, so I was able to do affiliate pretty quickly. And I wasn't really sure about it, um, about whether or not I wanted to do it, because it's like, why am I talking about financial information and making better decisions, and then having like the subscription and all that? But that's also why I was able to reconcile it by saying, okay, the way I use that is by accessing all this financial and economic information from any source I can worldwide, and then posting it for people to be able to look at. So they don't have to like go through the trouble of subscribing to like 20 or 50 or maybe if it gets to that point upwards of 100 different sources of information. I'll do that and centralize the information. And I feel like that is a pretty decent way to like give back, so to speak, or to make it worth it. But I take no credit for getting to affiliate, because that is definitely not my doing. There was a lot of people that kind of helped support me getting to affiliate that quickly. Not kind of, that did support me getting to affiliate that quickly. So the credit there is not mine to take. But yeah, I need to get something to eat. Depending on how I feel after getting something to eat, I might pop back on. No, I don't use any professional artwork. It's pretty much just me popping on, um, playing whatever game for a little bit, and then I just start talking about whatever topic whenever somebody pops in that wants to broach the subject. Usually, my backdrop game that I play while we're talking is also functions as my starter in lieu of a starting screen. I don't know if I'm gonna get any kind of professional thing done. We'll see. I'm only a few weeks in, so I haven't really like thought about it too much. Because it's at the moment it's more just about like having the discussions and conveying the information rather than too much else. So We'll see how far that goes for what it's worth. Alright. I think we're going to raid into some chaos. So we are going to raid Salala's favorite, Kage Boy. And there's really no other word to describe Kage other than chaos, honestly. So you'll see whenever you get there. But, oh, I almost forgot. I keep on forgetting this part. For anybody that is on mobile so you don't get left behind, because that's been happening a lot lately. That's the name of the streamer we're going to raid. And I suppose if you feel like having a raid message, there's your raid message. But Kage is a good dude. He's been playing God of War Ragnarok recently. He's been getting himself bodied by these dark elves. And shout out to Danny for making those emotes. Now you forget what message, Salala? Oh, to tell people where to go in a raid. So he's been playing a lot of God of War. So stop by. He's a pretty good dude. I take no accountability for the level of chaos you're going to see in the stream, though. So don't blame me for that. Well, thanks everybody for stopping by. Thank you, Mercy, for the raid. And thank you for those that followed. We'll see if we get into a discussion either later today or tomorrow. I want to do some more research into the nuclear energy information and see where that takes us. So I'll see you all later.